We are talking about one of the easiest armies in Legend League, from the deployment to the core destruction, and of course finishing off that triple. This is the army we are going to be used, and what we're going to define easy as the planning that's required, the deployment difficulty, your abilities and spell timing, and then just the ability to survive mistakes that you make throughout the attack that make it feel the easiest possible strategy. So let's hop into the first attack, keeping those in mind. So starting off, we're going to talk about planning. And planning is honestly very simple. You're looking at a couple key things. First off, the fire spitters, they're pointed away. You kind of want to come in from behind them as many times as possible. Not always possible if they're facing different directions, but that's going to be your main goal. The second goal is you don't want to put your Duke and King into the monolith. So like in this instance here, I'm putting my throwers straight into the monolith so that the throwers take out that nice and early, and my Duke and my King can go fight the long shot, which is a little bit of annoying, but not as bad as the monolith. The third thing we were talking about is ability and spell timing. For the most part, the Dragon Duke doesn't have an ability, so you don't have to worry about it. The Warden doesn't have an ability, so you don't have to worry about it. The Queens, you're basically using immediately off the start of the attack. And the King has the only active ability that you wait a little bit to use, and really you're just using it for funneling on the outside. So in terms of abilities, it's super simple. Now, spells can be a little bit more tricky, but quite honestly, all you're doing is ice blocking the Duke when he gets in trouble, and using your totems to distract key defenses like monoliths, like long shots, revenge towers, and of course, the logger. As you can see, we're distracting the logger right now with our totems so that all of our throwers don't get absolutely crushed all at once. Now, in terms of some surviving small mistakes, I think this is one of the best armies in this category, because really the only mistake that you can make that will not result in at least a high percentage 2-star or a 3-star is the funnel, which is right off the bat. And I mean, quite honestly, you've seen the planning that goes into this. It's very, very simple. You're putting a King and Duke on one side, you're putting a Queen on the other, and then you're just throwing in your throwers with the Warden and Siege Machine and wall breakers, and that's really it. So there's not a lot of things that can go wrong early in the raid. As you can see, this attack is just about over. Froze the Duke because why not? We had an extra spell, and that's going to be the end of the first attack. So let's go into the second attack looking at this and go through it again. Okay, so we have our monolith in the top right, or I guess that's the right side. So we want to take that out early, and we're going to send our King and Duke right into it and just use totems to distract because the fire spitters are pointing away. Ideally, we want our throwers to walk straight in behind that fire spitter towards the core of the base. So the Queen goes in the very top side to funnel out that. King and Duke come down here, and as you can see, I'm just toteming for the Duke to have him get through the monolith. If I wanted to, I could probably use a ice block spell, and I should have. And actually, here's a small mistake. I missed the ice block spell, ruined the entire Phoenix ability for the Duke, and spoiler alert, still going to triple. So, ability to survive small mistakes, check, right there. The ability and spell timing, again, the King, we used his ability, he ended up moving into the core, but he did the funnel part of his job. He did his job in terms of funneling the base. Queen, we used the ability right away. King and Duke, Warden and Duke, don't have abilities. No worries about it. Deployment is super simple. It happens in the first 5 to 10 seconds of the raid. All you're doing is putting stuff down and going. And the planning, again, you heard my planning. That's literally the entire thought process behind this attack, which is so incredibly simple that it's really hard to actually make mistakes. Now, I am going to show a mistake because it is possible, and I'll show you kind of how to counteract that. But you'll see, even when you make big mistakes, the throwers survive so long. Most of the time, it just ends up in like a time fail or a high percentage 2-star to where it's not going to ruin your Legends 1 attack day. Now, there is the possibility, as always, of a 1-star, because a lot of times you are coming in from opposite the town hall. But if you make sure to run the army correctly and get them into the core, I promise you won't 1-star as many times as you think you might. This attack's basically over. There's not a lot of left, so we're just going to fast forward through it and get on to the next one. Alright, on to the next one. So, here's a mistake, and we're going to show exactly what happened. And I actually make it in the planning stage, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. So, I should have dropped my throwers down probably at 6 o'clock, because then they could take out the monolith. I could put my Duke into the long shot, Queen behind the fire spitter, and have her walk in with the throwers towards the town hall section. Instead, I did get a little scared of box space, and I didn't want to 1-star with the town hall on the outside, so I started down by the town hall. And my critical mistake here is they end up pathing around the top side because they attack these heroes. And what that means is that we get into the core, but we don't get into the backside part of the base where my king ends up getting taken out by the monolith, and my Duke ends up in that area as well, which just means for them that they get taken down way too easily. And that was my main mistake. I left the monolith for the back end, and I tried to have my Duke and king fight it, which is just not going to work. And it's not just a thrower's problem, that's a every attack problem. So that's not really a specific mistake to this army, but as you can see, we did get into the core a little bit. The throwers just got held up a ton next to the town hall, which was part of the problem with this attack. They also split a little funky. I wish those throwers would have gone more towards the core and down towards this monolith, like I said, and the Duke could have taken out this whole top side, but instead they are going to go beat on a wall on the top side, and you can already probably see where this is going. Time is going to be a huge problem. It ends up being a fail because I believe my Warden dies in the back end, but I mean, right now we're looking at 65%. The healers and Warden are still there, so they're just going to walk around the entire outside of the base and pick up. I think it ends up being like a 90-95%, but that was the issue with this attack. It wasn't anything about the deployment, the ability or spell timing, or really a mistake during the attack. The mistake was made during the planning stage, and if I would have taken a more aggressive attack strategy in terms of coming in from the bottom side of the base or the opposite side of the town hall, I do feel this would have tripled, as the throwers would have worked their way more into the core and taken out the entire base. Let's finish up with one more attack. And again, we're looking at a box base with the fire spitters down on the bottom. And again, this is kind of what I'm talking about planning. We want to come in opposite the fire spitters. We don't really want to go into those right away, because when we do, or come in from the opposite them, because when we do, they just end up dealing damage to our troops the entire time. Now, the good thing about our Duke and King is we can start them opposite the monolith. As you can see, they are going into the long shot. Now, the long shot deals damage, but actually, if the Duke isn't really targeted by anything else, it'll take down the long shot with the cards sent back to it. Now, in this case, he does get targeted by the air defense. I end up ice blocking him, and then my throwers are going to work their way into this core where all the splash damage is. Now, the good thing about the throwers is with tons of healers, they really, unless there's a ton of raged up splash on them, they handle them pretty well, because your healers are going to heal them up and get in the base. Now, the cake launcher is one of the defenses you do want to use totems on sometimes. Right now, it's absolutely cooking my throwers on the right, but my Warden and Queen are down on the left, so I don't really want to try and save them too much, because my Duke is up there anyways, and as you can see, he now starts pathing in and gets attacked by the Revenge Tower. Good thing about this, we can just ice block the Duke over and over again. So you can see, dropped an ice block. I still have two more, and I mean, I don't think this attack was executed perfectly. I think there was a few mistakes in terms of pathing. My throwers didn't go straight through the core like they probably would have liked. The Queen is down on the bottom. She did funnel, just not well enough. But at the end of the day, we're still going to 3-star this base pretty easily, I would say. I mean, the Revenge Tower goes down because of the fact that Duke is getting ice blocked. Now they're targeting the totem spell that I dropped for them. There's nothing that can really take down the throwers at this point. And so you can see just how easy this attack is. So like on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of armies that can be used in Legend 1, this has got to be one of the easiest strategies there is. There is Hydra, which is probably on par, but with this one, it's just so easy to spam troops in and get the triple. I think it takes the cake. That's going to be the end of the video. Subscribe if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.